So today I was just inspired in reading the workbook lesson and been thinking about this for a while, that happiness is an inside job. There's an inner source of light in each one of us, which is the source of truth and joy and peace. And that then radiates outward to others, other relationships, and to the world at large. Our reading for today is the next section, chapter 9.6 in the FIP edition, entitled The Acceptance of Your Brother. And this is profound in many ways, as the reading consistently is profound in many ways. And I want to thank our brother David for volunteering to be our reader today.
How can you become increasingly aware of the Holy Spirit in you except by his effects? You cannot see him with your eyes nor hear him with your ears. How then can you perceive him at all? If you inspire joy and others react to you with joy, even though you are not experiencing joy yourself, there must be something in you that is capable of producing it. If it is in you and can produce joy, and if you see that it does produce joy in others, you must be dissociating it in yourself.
Mm-hmm. There must be something in you that is capable of producing joy. And how? David asked in a previous session where there was a comment about the proof of the Holy Spirit and how does it prove itself. And here you become increasingly aware of the Holy Spirit by the effects that it has in your life and in your relationships. And it has that effect because it's an inside job. It works within you and then radiates outward to others. It must be shared. So in the reading today, there are two aspects that I would draw your attention to. One is the recognition within you of a infinite truth, unconditional love, eternal peace. These are just words for the same entity, spirit reality within you. There's that aspect, and its opposite, which we will talk about, the dissociation from that inward light, the dissociation in yourself. And I'll have more to say on that just in a moment here, because dissociating with inward joy is perhaps not a term that everyone is familiar with. Rich, you had your hand up.
I would want to say that for me, this paragraph, I mean, the goal is to be wholly joyous. And what does that mean exactly? Well, joy as a feeling, as a reality, I mean, it has heights, it has, like the full feeling of real joy. It's a real thing. I mean, the book is using black ink on white paper to describe something, but it's a real feeling. So I know for myself that some people like me to some degree, some people dislike me to some degree, some people, whatever. So that I do inspire joy to some degree as I go along, great. And am I feeling wholly joyous myself? No, I mean, I feel fairly good. I feel fairly good. Feel like I'm, along the right lines, but, so yeah, so that's something I would say about it. Just, like the heights of perfect joy, perfect peace, Jesus like, or Gautama Siddhartha like, or whoever like, Paramahansa Yogananda like, finding that type of deep sense of peace, no matter what anyone is saying, thinking, or doing. Like, I am wholly joyous. I mean, that's the goal.
Mhm. Thank you, brother. So yes, Rich makes a distinction between the awareness that there is a total joy within us, but that we're not always aware of that. We don't experience maximal joy very often. And that's what we want to look at today, is removing the barrier between maximal joy and our own awareness, which leads us to the idea, the ego mechanism of dissociating from your joy. Susie?
I just want to ask a question. Are we skipping the unhealed healer?
Well, it wasn't our intention to. I thought we did that already. Let's see, I need a little help there. In either event, Susie, if I find that we did skip it, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll come
We
back.
did
to it
skip
tomorrow.
it.
So
I only know this because I was looking forward to reading it today. So it's all good. I just was wondering if I
all right,
missed
so-
it, and I know I was here last
so
Monday.
if that was my error, I'm happy to acknowledge it. And so we'll reverse the order. We'll do this one today and the unhealed healer tomorrow. I need to check my, a lot of times I experience these things and then I move on. I can't really recall.
I just didn't know if it was me, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't dissociating.
Certainly not intentional. All right, thank you. Sandra?
Yeah, I have a question. Is joy the goal, or is the extension of love, joy, the goal? Is joy itself the goal, or is it the extension of it?
I like your question. So the goal of this course is peace, the undoing of the sources of conflict within the individual that rob us of peace. The goal of this course is peace, which is a condition for experiencing all the gifts. You have to be at peace within yourself in order to become aware of all the gifts. So then love and joy come after we've experienced peace. And your question was whether or not extending it or experiencing it matters. It doesn't, Sandra. Giving and receiving are one in truth. And so the experience of joy involves both giving and receiving. They are part and parcel of the same thing. You can't do one without the other. All right, I want to move on and then, move on to this concept of what the ego does. So we want to recognize the presence of joy, but we also want to recognize anything that blocks us from the awareness of that or limits us in any degree. And that brings us to the course's description of dissociation, not a concept most people would immediately identify with. So the term is used in psychology to describe a disconnect. It's a distorted process of thinking whereby the mind attempts to believe in two different systems which cannot both coexist. It's where you split yourself into believing in both love and fear and attempt to maintain both systems. So I say love and fear, you can say innocence and guilt, freedom and imprisonment, all of those ideas, but the mind attempts to maintain both systems. This is inherently ego-driven. So we'll clarify the term but when we say ego dissociation, so we're referencing an ego-driven mentality. It's a psychological defense mechanism that denies your oneness with God, attempts to repress the memory of God's love and our true spiritual, repress our true spiritual identity, which causes us to feel separate and alienated from God and from our fellows, and certainly blocks our ability to feel joy. So that's how it's used in A Course in Miracles. Ego defense mechanism to forget the presence of God. And there are a large number of ways in which this expresses itself. Here's just one example, focusing on future goals as a defense against awareness of present peace. Focusing on the past or the future, you dissociate from the present, dissociate from the joy and peace that is here right now, and defend against them by looking elsewhere. Well, here's what, if that wasn't enough to understand, there's one further dimension to all ego defenses, and that is that the Holy Spirit can reinterpret them for good. And so the Holy Spirit can repurpose dissociation and use it to help in your healing. And its proper use is to split yourself off from that which is false, that which is illusory and unreal. It's to not invest your faith in those things, to dissociate from them. This is for your purposes of healing and integration. It's a process of choosing to reintegrate with spirit rather than to jump in the boxing ring with ego. And this essentially is a reversal of the way the ego would use dissociation. All defense mechanisms have this character of being initially developed by ego to defend against God, and then the Holy Spirit reinterprets those defenses to enable you to integrate once again. We'll go on. David?
It seems to you that the Holy Spirit does not produce joy consistently in you only because you do not consistently arouse joy in others. Their reactions to you are your evaluations of his consistency. When you are inconsistent, you will not always give rise to joy, and so you will not always recognize his consistency. What you offer to your brother, you offer to him, because he cannot go beyond your offering in his giving. This is not because he limits his giving, but simply because you have limited your receiving. The decision to receive is the decision to accept.
So they mention here consistency and inconsistency. And in the Manual for Teachers, the characteristics of God's teachers, number 2 is honesty, which is to be consistent with truth, with Holy Spirit guidance. And it is a journey from inconsistency, vacillating between love and fear, between innocence and guilt in the initial ego state. And it's a journey towards consistency. And in so doing, becoming more and more honest, more consistent, one remains associated with the Holy Spirit more habitually. And so this shows up in your relationships with others. And to the extent that you show up consistently in your relationship with your brothers through forgiveness and through being helpful and being healing, then you allow the Holy Spirit to operate through you. If you fail to do that, if you show up with your brothers and dissociate from Holy Spirit guidance, then you limit yourself. And as it says here, it's not because Holy Spirit limits his giving, but simply because you have limited your receiving. The decision to receive is the decision to accept, and therefore, by receiving, you are able to give. And I have a little footnote on here that I think is really helpful, because we talk about giving and receiving are one in truth. To have all, give all to all. It's a giving and receiving phenomena. We mentioned it just earlier when Sandra was asking about joy. Your receiving of the Holy Spirit's guidance is directly impacts your giving to your brother. They are in reciprocal relationships. The more you give to your brother, the more you receive from the Holy Spirit. The more you receive from the Holy Spirit, the more you give to your brother. Rich?
All right. I want to go back to one previous thing about this is, finding joy, being wholly joyous is never about selfishness. As far as what was asked earlier, it's always about God extending himself. And yes, Jonica said the main goal is peace, but along with that comes a great sense of joy and kindness and easiness and gentleness and strength, and none of the negative emotions, as ACIM talks about them, about the ego mind. So, and it's all kind of like, even to give and to receive, that particular lesson talks about, there's like almost any sentence in the book can be thought of in terms of a one thought idea about, real enlightenment, things of this nature. Anyway, as far as dissociation, I mean, it's, living completely in the God mind, not whatsoever in the ego mind. I mean, to me, that would be a simple summation of the idea. Now that's, me personally, I believe in a personal God and the first person of the Trinity and things like that. So, it depends on your beliefs in terms of what real truth is. But, that is the goal of the book. It's just dissociation means zero ego mind in terms of everything about it, 100% God mind. And as I look at this paragraph too, what's interesting is, yes, everything it says, I believe everything it says, but I'm also thinking about, for example, the historical Jesus of Nazareth, who we believe was living in this holy, joyous, peaceful, kind, loving, strong state of mind. And yet, the reactions he got towards the end of his life were horrible in terms of people truly did not see him as, giving them joy. They decided to kill him. So, you have these aspects of truth to the entire thing. Like somebody can be living in a holy, joyous, perfect state of mind themselves, and yet others truly do not see them and hate them, lividly because of their own ego. So, there are different truths about the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on.
If your brothers are part of you, will you accept them? Only they can teach you what you are, for your learning is the result of what you taught them. What you call upon in them, you call upon in yourself. And as you call upon it in them, it becomes real to you. God has but one Son, knowing them all as one. Only God himself is more than they, but they are not less than he is. Would you know what this means? If what you do to my brother, you do to me, and if you do everything for yourself because we are part of you, everything we do belongs to you as well. Everyone God created is part of you and shares his glory with you. His glory belongs to him, but it is equally yours. You cannot then be less glorious than he is.
So this is yet another illustration of giving and receiving, actually of projection. So it says, what you call upon in your brothers, you call upon in yourself. And as you call upon it in them, it becomes real to you. So when you call upon peace, and forgiveness, and innocence in your brothers, you call upon those attributes in yourself. For to have, you must give all to all. As you give, you call upon those attributes in yourself. And as you call upon it in them, David, here's your proof. As you call upon the attributes in your brother, they become real to you. It's the proof in your experience that those attributes are there. They become more that you are filled with the experience of forgiveness, innocence, peace in your relationships with others. They become real to you. So it is inevitable that we must share these things, and it's more of a circular process rather than a linear process. Many people want to know, well, which comes first? Calling upon in yourself or calling it upon in your brother? They want to put it into like a time sequence there. And in fact, they are, as we will read later on in today, they are circular and simultaneous experiences. You should think of them not in terms of starting with one and moving on to another, but that they both are self-reinforcing and reciprocal with each other. So, and then, so this is not the way the ego works, of course. The ego, for example, feeling guilty in itself will attempt to project those qualities outward onto others in an effort, a foolish effort to get rid of the guilt and place it outward. It wants not to share the guilt, but to separate from it and project it onto others and see them as the source of the problem. But with Holy Spirit, it's the exact opposite. We recognize in others the same qualities that we find to be true in ourselves. Let's go on.
God is more than you only because he created you, but not even this would he keep from you. Therefore, you can create as he did, and your dissociation will not alter this. Neither God's light nor yours is dimmed because you do not see. Because the sonship must create as one, you remember creation whenever you recognize part of creation. Each part you remember adds to your wholeness because each part is whole. Wholeness is indivisible, but you cannot learn of your wholeness until you see it everywhere. You can know yourself only as God knows his Son, for knowledge is shared with God. When you awaken him, you will know your magnitude by accepting his limitlessness as yours. But meanwhile, you will judge it as you judge your brother's, and will accept it as you accept his.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting, these two counterpoint ideas here towards the end of the paragraph. When you awaken God, you will know your own magnitude by accepting God's limitlessness as yours. So the premise of that statement is when you awaken him. It requires that first we awaken him for us to then know our magnitude and accept God's limitlessness as ours. But in the meantime, now we're in time. Now we're in a frame of mind that is not yet attained total forgiveness and is still learning to forgive. But meanwhile, you will judge your limits as you judge your brothers and will accept them as you accept his. For in other words, we're referring to the ego tendency to dissociate from your limitlessness and from God's limitlessness, and instead use little thinking to see yourself not in the terms of your gifts from God, but to judge yourself little and to see your brothers in the same light. So we said earlier that dissociation, ego dissociation, has many, many forms. And so here it is again, the way we judge our brothers is the way we judge ourselves. Okay, Rich, you had a comment?
Yes. So in the first paragraph there, they reference the Bible a lot. So what's that line there? If what you do to my brothers, you do to me, like the Bible line, do unto others as I would do unto them, Jesus of Nazareth. So, so the book throughout these paragraphs and throughout, I mean, the goal is true oneness with your brother, every single being in existence, man or angel or any other being, oneness with every single being in terms of friendliness, love, care, consideration, goodness, all that. That is absolutely the goal. Oneness with your brother in terms of oneness with God himself and, every single being in existence. That is talked about throughout the book, and that is the goal. So, for me, while it does say there, I see it, when you awaken him, you will know your magnitude, accept your limitlessness. I see it, but I also see some lines that are very, very much saying to me about the personal God himself. God is more than you because he created you. God himself is more than they, but they are not less than he is. Right up there at the beginning, or everyone God created is part of you and shares his glory with you. His glory belongs to him, but is equally yours. So for me, it doesn't have to be read as a personal God. It does not. And most people do not. I do. There's a personal, real first person of the Trinity, second person of the Trinity, third person of the Trinity. And then there are other spirit beings. This is just a fact. And so, the goal is getting in perfect accord, attune, alignment with God's will, the first person of the Trinity. That's the extension of God. That's the real goal. And speaking of, trying to awaken the greatness of it all, is a fallacy.
Okay, thank you. All right, so another way in which you can get a feel for the Holy Spirit's teaching system is illustrated in this line: wholeness is indivisible. We're talking about the joint will, the sonship, the totality, the completion is indivisible, but you cannot learn of your wholeness until you see it everywhere, until you see it in everyone. So remember, the title of what we're reading about today is the acceptance of your brother. You cannot learn of your wholeness until you see it everywhere and in everyone. It is a shared experience. And when you do see it everywhere and in everyone, then you will know yourself as God knows his Son. So there is a cause and effect relationship. You see your wholeness everywhere, and then you can know yourself as God knows you. Susie?
I have a kind of an interesting story that happened to me this week, which helps me really understand this. On Monday, I played cards, which is a miracle in itself because I have my thinking has completely changed around that. And I was sitting next to a woman who, my ego started to kind of judge. And I thought immediately, I turned to the Holy Spirit and I said, this is a teacher for me. I recognized that immediately instead of going into ego, stuff. The next day, she subbed in a card game that I was playing in, and she wasn't supposed to be sitting at my table. Well, of course she was supposed to be sitting at my table, but she ended up sitting at my table, at our table, and two of us started talking about the loss of our moms and our siblings and things. And nobody knew her and prior to this, and she just burst out in tears that she had just lost her mom. And she said she hasn't been able to talk about this, but found it so easy to talk with us because we were all talking about it. We all put down our cards. We weren't going there to play cards. We were obviously going there to extend love and, be with this woman. And it just came over me like crazy, like she's my equal. There we were. I saw her as the same as me. I think the whole table did. And it was just like a real example of this. Like, you can know yourself only as God knows his Son. And, she, like I said, it was just a beautiful moment where we were like, I felt that I was one with her and did not the day before, but knew that she was a teacher for me. And it was exactly what this paragraph for me is saying. And I am starting to learn to see the wholeness everywhere. And peace is not just for me. You know, salvation is just not for me. It's for all of us. You know, we don't get to heaven alone. So, you know, I have a lot of gratitude for, you know, today's lesson says, forget this course, come with empty, open hands, you know, and no judgment. And that's kind of my experience. So yeah, I just wanted to share it.
On behalf of everybody, Susie, I want to thank you for sharing that miracle. I felt the healing, wave of healing just rolling over as you were sharing that. Thank you. It's a gift, you know, when it was your experience, but by your sharing it with us, we become part of it as well, because we're all in this together. There is a wholeness that is indivisible. Her healing is a part of our healing, even though we don't know what she looks like, or don't know her name even. We are all healing as one sonship. Thank you again. David?
You are not yet awake, but you can learn how to awaken. Very simply, the Holy Spirit teaches you to awaken others. As you see them waken, you will learn what waking means. And because you have chosen to wake them, their gratitude and their appreciation of what you have given them will teach you its value. They will become the witnesses to your reality, as you were created witnesses to God. Yet, when the sonship comes together and accepts its oneness, it will be known by its creations, who witness to its reality as the Son does to the Father.
So what Susie just shared a moment ago, let's look at this paragraph as a elaboration of what she shared, because and it's not the form that matters. The relationships that you have with people have their own form. It's beyond the form. It's into the formlessness. It's the purpose for which we are here. And so, not yet awake, but learning how to awaken by teaching you to awaken others. And then you see them healing and waking and forgiving. And as a result, it becomes real to you. It becomes the proof. You learn what waking means because you've chosen to participate with them in the waking process. And from that flows gratitude and appreciation. And there's this term again, they, and Susie recognized it right away that she was a teacher. They become witnesses to your reality, to the truth within you. So this is the acceptance of your brother, no matter what form they may appear in. If you choose to recognize the truth in them, that they then become a witness to the truth in you. Yeah. So the sonship comes together and accepts its oneness. It then knows its creations, and its creations. So Susie, that was part of your creations. Your healing journey now includes that woman. And your oneness will be known by your creations who witness to its reality as the Son witnesses to the Father. So it's a wholeness that is indivisible. It certainly doesn't appear that way to the ego, But to the eyes of the Holy Spirit, in this new perception that she is teaching us, we are all interrelated with one another. As Susie said, we enter into heaven together.
And Jonica, this line, their gratitude and their appreciation of what you have given them will teach you its value. You know, for me, it was like, this is what it's all about. This woman was so grateful and appreciative, and it helped me recognize the value of the extension of love and selflessness instead of selffulness, which we've read about. You know, it really helped teach me, you know, always be open to that, because it's really valuable. What do I value? The valueless or the, you know, it's really, when I read this paragraph, I'm like, oh, here it is. It's in the next paragraph.
Again. Yeah, and I so appreciate, Susie, what you emphasized. That on one level, you were at a table playing cards, but that wasn't the reason why you were there. That was a form, that was a physical appearance, but Holy Spirit has a plan and a purpose that transcends the form, that has to do with our function here. And she brought it into being in that form, but it can appear in any form. So it's really lovely that you were able to recognize that right from the beginning. Rich?
Yeah. For me, this paragraph, I mean, this book says all the time, you know, about ideas like, you know, the Holy Spirit teaches you to awaken others. So talk to others. So commune with others. Your body is nothing but a means of communication. So do that. You know, I mean, you got the biblical line. Jesus said, go into all the world and bring this message. You know, it's ideas like that. You all by yourself are the salvation of the world is, you know, a statement in this book more than once in different ways. So it's that idea, you know, they will become the witnesses as you were created witness to God. Be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. So, you know, and that it does depend on what someone truly believes. And, you know, I see that last sentence there, 5:5, you know, when the sonship comes together and accepts its oneness, it will be known by its creations. Well, for me, its oneness is not about losing individuality or, you know, disappearing into the everything. That's not the goal. The goal is perfect character, moral majesty, sinlessness, purity. What's the other words it uses there? Holiness. That's the real goal. Live that way, like Jesus lived in his public mission, like Thomas Siddhartha lived after his enlightenment, like others have lived after their real enlightenment. I mean, real state of holy, joyous, conflict-free state of mind. I mean, that's the real goal. And then, but you know, it can be read, and I know most people read it as, you know, lose your individuality, no more dualism, disappear into the everything. That's what it's really saying. Somebody else would say that to me, you know, accepts its oneness, fine, you know, but it's not saying that.
All right, thank you for that clarity. David?
Miracles have no place in eternity because they are reparative. Yet, while you still need healing, your miracles are the only witnesses to your reality that you can recognize. You cannot perform a miracle for yourself because miracles are a way of giving acceptance and receiving it. In time, the giving comes first, though they are simultaneous in eternity, where they cannot be separated. When you have learned they are the same, the need for time is over. Eternity is one time, its only dimension being always.
So here we have this time eternity paradox, seeming differentiation here. So let's go over this particular aspect of it. Are there miracles in eternity? In heaven and perfect oneness, are there needs to forgive? Are there needs to heal? No, because that state of eternity implies it's like the original state, the final state, the completion of the atonement. Everything is complete. But miracles do have a role in time. So now we're referring to the apparent journey that we're on through a teaching learning process that involves undoing mistaken ideas of the ego and replacing them with the Holy Spirit's guidance. In that frame of consciousness, you still need healing. And the miracles are the only witnesses to your reality that you can recognize. So, David Schneider, does that mean that the miracles are proofs? They are the only witnesses to your reality that you are able to recognize at this time. So that's why it's a Course in Miracles. They witness to a more profound reality, but they are the form of witness that you can appreciate and understand at this phase in our journey. And they are not self-centered, because miracles are a way of participating in the sonship. It says in another place in the Course that there's really only one miracle. And every experience that we have of miracle is a reflection of the one miracle of creation. So they're not these billions of separate independent miracles. They are all a part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness that brings us all into the awareness of oneness. So, time and eternity. In time, the giving comes first. It appears in time that giving comes before receiving. Though giving and receiving are simultaneous in eternity, where they cannot be separated. When you have learned that they are the same, that giving and when you have learned that giving and receiving are the same, the need for time is over. And so this brings us to the paradox. David, we talked about this, the paradox of time and eternity, and the human mind wants to know, which is it? Is it a time view or an eternal view? And in fact, integration and oneness is the ability to see both views at the same time, and it's explained here in the next paragraph, eternity is one time. Its only dimension is always. And so before we leave this concept of the paradoxes of time and eternity, let's read this next paragraph. David?
Eternity is one time, its only dimension being always. This cannot mean anything to you until you remember God's open arms and finally know his open mind. Like him, you are always in his mind and with a mind like his. In your open mind are your creations, in perfect communication, born of perfect understanding. Could you but accept one of them, you would not want anything the world has to offer. Everything else would be totally meaningless. God's meaning is incomplete without you, and you are incomplete without your creations. Accept your brother in this world and accept nothing else. For in him you will find your creations, because he created them with you. You will never know that you are co-creator with God until you learn that your brother is co-creator with you.
So I heard an echo of the experience that Susie shared with us around the card table. Accept your brother in this world and accept nothing else, for in him you will find your creations, because he, your brother, created them with you. You two, the giving and receiving joins us so that there's really no difference between the giver and the receiver. In eternity, you will realize that they are the same. And you will never know that you are co-creator with God until you learn your brother is co-creator with you. And so all these situations that each of us are going to have this week and this month are merely, a Holy Spirit views them as opportunities, invitations to accept our brothers as we would accept ourselves. And with that, we become more certain of our own role as co-creator with God. Matter of fact, the two are intertwined by recognizing your brother's role in this living, unfolding creation. You recognize your own. So let's go back up to the top just a second here, because we're dealing with this absolute view from eternity and this relative view from time. And of course, we're familiar with the relative view, and the Holy Spirit is familiar with both the relative view and the absolute view. It says the eternity view cannot mean anything to you until you remember God's open arms and finally know his open mind. So this would be the goal that is beyond the curriculum of this course, is to finally know his open mind. But this course prepares you to enter in to that final state. And so we'll wrap up today with this idea of what is an open mind. Maybe it would help to think of its opposite, a closed mind. A closed mind is defending itself, trying to keep things the way they appeared to be in the past, trying to use fixed and rigid belief systems, hold them in place so that the ego can maintain control. That's a closed mind. An open mind is free. It's able to undo, to let go, and move forward in learning in the service of healing and integration. Your open mind is where your hope is. It's where your creations are. They are all the experiences of love and healing and relationship that you ever had are in your open mind. It's where your creations are. And the Holy Spirit ensures that you will retain them. It's a part of her mind. It's the open mind. There's only one open mind, and you participate in it. And in that open mind is perfect communication and perfect understanding. Could you but accept one of those creations, you would not want anything the world has to offer. Everything else would be totally meaningless. Noel?
I see an open mind also as one without judgment, or at least catching my judgment quickly and reversing it. I came across something in the manual for teachers that just resonated. Wisdom is not judgment. It is the relinquishment of judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, this willingness to let go, the ego wants to remain in control by judgment. And our willingness to step aside from that function, let it go, let it be undone for us, is one of the most profound and all-encompassing lessons in this program, because it's, as a matter of fact, it tells us in the course that the last judgment you'll ever make is the entryway into your complete freedom, because you no longer carry the burden of judgment upon your shoulders. That becomes the last judgment, allows you to be completely free, for there is nothing that we need. There is no guilt, therefore there is no need to judge. And it's only the ego that would seem to impose a requirement for judgment. Susie?
Yeah, I just want to add, and of course, always put the plugs in for the lessons, because, you know, all of this in theory is amazing and sounds great. And, you know, I believe it to be true, but I can't experience it without the help of the Holy Spirit. You know, the Holy Spirit is the only thing that will help me change my mind, change the effects of the cause of my unhealed mind. And so it just reminds me of Jane. I miss Jane. I don't know if we've been in touch with her or not, but she would always open her mic and say, you know, we need the Holy Spirit to help us with all, or, you know, so all of this becomes experiential. At least that's been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Holy Spirit will heal my conflict in my unhealed mind. I can't do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's why I like to think of the open mind is the mind of the Holy Spirit. It's the gateway into the union of all minds as one. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Rich?
Okay, yes. I don't know. For me, couple ideas here. Just that, I mean, the beginning of 6 there, you know, you're in need of healing. Everyone is in need of healing. I mean, this is a statement more than once in the book. But if everyone was walking around with the Jesus mind, Jesus in his public mission, if everyone had that type of mind, what a different world it would be. I'll say that much. You know, for me, it's you know, it's not so much about disappearing the world. 7-5. Could you but accept one of them, you would not want anything the world has to offer, meaning nothing the ego has to offer. My goal isn't to make the physical world disappear. It's not. It's to make the ego anything described, talked about in this book, that which is ego. Yes, make that an illusion. That is an illusion. Get rid of that. Get God mind. Absolutely. I mean, you know, for God himself, the eternal, timeless God himself, yes, he sees everyone, absolutely every being in their perfection, wholly joyous, conflict free, et cetera, in terms of what all that, how the book talks about all that. He sees everyone right now as that. The book says it, right in the introduction. You are that. You are that. You just need to, get rid of these dark cornerstones and such, this ego nonsense, garbage stuff. Get rid of that one way or another, and you will experience full joy, full peace, full glory, full exuberance, full happiness, like Jesus in his public mission, or Gautama Siddhartha, or others who have achieved this state. So to God, yes, the timeless, eternal God, he already knows you in this perfection. And you just have to do a little work to get rid of this ego thing, and you'll know it yourself. And I would say one other thing, just that in real truth, that moment where God takes the last step and someone goes to true enlightenment, Jesus-like enlightenment, Buddha-like enlightenment, real enlightenment, the book says it more than one place. It's quantitatively different than anything that came before, as far as like the regular mind, the ego mind, this and that, what we do. When you remove everything that's ego, when everything that's ego is gone, however anybody wants to say that, doesn't matter. But when you have the full God mind, there's this quantifiable leap difference into true joy, true calmness, true strength, true gentleness, all that and more in terms of who you are as a person. So that's the real goal.
Thank you for sharing that, Rich. All right, my friends, that's as far as we're going to read today. We will pick it up tomorrow. I'm going to go back and check to see where we are. But you could be sure we'll be picking it up here in chapter 9 tomorrow. Thank you, David, for reading. And remember always that we are in part of one sonship, united in the joint will of the sonship. Thank you. Namaste.
Hey, I hate,
Oh,
namaste.
David.
I hate to be silly, stupid, whatever. And that's an ego statement, so I'll forget that. But anyway, I still have a poor understanding of the first sentence of paragraph 2. It seems to you that the Holy Spirit does not produce joy consistently in you only because you do not consistently arouse joy in others. Their reactions to you are your evaluations of his consistency. I just stumbled on that, and it just has been kind of bugging me through the whole readings that I'm missing something or not understanding something there.
Yeah, it's
somebody could expound upon that.
It's really transpersonal, David. I agree. This is not obvious, especially because there's in the ego mentality, what's yours is yours and what's mine is mine. And now from the Holy Spirit's point of view, we are in a shared experience where we're sharing our creation. So it's a very different view. And it's the idea of the other person being a witness to you. And so stated positively, when a person is fully recognizes the joy in themselves, they will only look for joy in another, and they will only see that which the Holy Spirit acknowledges as real. And anything less than that acts as a barrier, is evidence of obstruction, of less acceptance, unacceptance. Actually, to use the word here, is evidence dissociation. I don't think that helps, but that was my comment. Kathy has comment here.
It did help. It did help.
Yeah, I get that. And the thought that occurred to me was, if we're not extending joy to others, then, but I think what you're saying is, Jonica, it's like we don't have it to give, or we don't think we have it to give. But if we're extending joy and they're receiving joy, then we're all joyful. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
That is true. That's the ideal state. Susie? You're muted. You muted yourself.
Oh, okay. I think the key words here is it seems to you that the Holy Spirit does not, it's not real. It seems to you, to me, to David, that the Holy Spirit does not produce joy consistently because I do not consistently arouse it in others. So because I'm not there yet. So it seems to me, that the Holy Spirit doesn't produce joy consistently, but the Holy Spirit does produce joy to me. If I am willing to open my mind, like the paragraph said, to it, and then I will arouse joy consistently in others.
Yes.
I think the key word is it seems.
Yeah. Right.
Because if I'm not arousing joy in others, I'm in my ego. So then I'm confused. Wow, where's the Holy Spirit? You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. It seems that way, and this need not be that way.
Right.
Very
So
good.
if I allow with an open mind and let the Holy Spirit in, I will arouse joy in others consistently. So it's my separation. And it just seems, but it's not. I think that word seems is very important.
It's a seeming experience, not a true. It's an experience in confusion, a seemingly experience. Yeah. Noelle?
Hey, it seems I have to feel joy myself before I can project it to another or see it in another.
Yes.
The sentence beginning what you offer to your brother, the underlined part, he cannot go beyond your offering. So I have to offer first and feel it. And that involves knocking down the ego and all the other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, that helps. I'm out of time here. Need to go. Thank you all for your presence. We will see you again real soon. Go with God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.